UFC Fight Night, Moreno versus Albazi happened a few days ago. I took some time to rest, relax, and recover after what was not a great card, top to bottom, to be completely honest. Main event was a banger if you're a Brandon Moreno fan. I got some thoughts on that, though. You might want to stick around. You might not like what I have to say. But yeah, so quickly I'm going to run through the card. I'm going to run through my picks, and I'm going to run through what really happened on the night of the fight. So without further ado, let's get out of the Electoral College for the United States really quick. So first fight, Jamie Lynn Horth versus Ivana Petrovic. I thought this was a robbery, frankly. Petrovic outstruck her pretty handedly, and I have it down as a robbery. I had Petrovic via decision, and I got it wrong, but I didn't. So there's that. Second fight, I foolishly picked Chad and Helliger because he was... I picked a Canadian. That was my problem. I had originally picked Cody Gibson, but I don't trust Cody Gibson at all to do anything well. So, you know, I got unlucky. I honestly thought the fight was not close at all. And it was honestly embarrassing that I had picked Chad. Not a good showing by him, but whatever. I had picked Serhi City in the next fight versus Garrett Armfield. He was a little bit of a favorite. He won, but he lost, if you know what I mean. If you watched the fight, you know what I'm talking about. You probably didn't watch the fight, so I'll tell you what happened. Garrett Armfield looked sharp on the feet. Great boxer. He's really sharp. He just looked really good all fight, and then somehow lost to, you know, a guy who didn't really fight better than him. I know that it looks like all the rounds are close, but basically, I think there was a lot of weight given to submission attempts in this fight. Basically, 1 in the first round to none with close striking, even though the takedown was Armfield and he got out of the submission pretty easily. I mean, he wasn't close to getting tapped really at any point. He just remained calm and whatever. So yeah, that bothered me. I think Serhi City won via robbery. My pick was correct, but I just morally can't support it. Next up, Alexander Romanov versus Rodrigo Nascimento, however you say it. He, Nascimento that is, needs to retire because he got outstruck by Romanov, out-cardioed by Romanov, and Romanov did wrestle fuck him, like I said. So I actually got the triple perfect pick there. Romanov looked good. He looked decent on the feet, but that wasn't something I expected. Next up, Yusuf Zalal versus Jack Shore. Yusuf Zalal, did exactly what I anticipated he would do, which is show levels against a guy like Jack Shore, who's a pretty heavy underdog, and I think Yusuf Zalal showed that he's actually better than a lot of people give him credit for and better than a lot of the other featherweights in the division. So, next up, I had Victor Henry via decision. He got submitted. Not much to say about that. Charles Jourdain had a nice night. Good for him. Whatever. I lost. Bad pick. I didn't do great on this card. I'll admit it. Fine, you've pulled it out of me. Ayman Zahabi versus Pedro Munoz. I had Zahabi via TKO. He did not win via TKO, but he did win. And on this card, that's about all I can ask for because I'm pretty sure I went like 1 for 5 on the main event or something. 1 for 6. Main card, I mean. Yeah, so Zahabi showed levels against a guy who shouldn't probably be fighting anymore, Pedro Munoz, so, you know, whatever. Next up, Mike Mallet versus Trevin Giles. I picked against Mike Mallet just off, you know, principle alone. I picked Giles by KO. I just thought, you know, Mallet would get caught kind of toward the end of the fight, gassing out, but looks like he finally learned from his mistakes, so good for the Canadian. I love Canadians, but I don't trust them when I pick them. I think every fight that had a Canadian in it, I was incorrect. Wow. No. Zahabi's apparently Canadian, which is news to me. Literally every other fight that had a Canadian, I was incorrect. So, next fight, Marc-Andre Barriault versus Dustin Stoltzfus. I had picked, obviously, Marc-Andre Barriault. Dustin Stoltzfus clipped him on the chin at the end of the first round and put him to bed, and it was sick, and it was filthy, and I honestly haven't watched much of Dustin Stoltzfus. I remember saying that he had 6 first-round finishes, so he could potentially be dangerous, but I did not expect him to actually knock out Marc-Andre like that. So that was sick. Good for him. Brought some energy to the card, woke me up a little bit, so we can always appreciate that. I had picked Jasmine Jasudavicius via WrestleFuck. I don't know if... I mean, I guess I'd call it that. It was like... She was much more physical. She only took her down 3 times, but like it was a 3-round fight that went into the third and she got submitted and like, whatever. For only one submission attempt in the fight, and she. So anyway, next fight, Kyle Machado versus Brenson Ribeiro. I picked Machado, and I think I was right, even though they say I was wrong. Argue with me in the comments, I guess. If you think I'm wrong, then tell me. And I'll tell you why you're not, and I'll post the entire fight. Just kidding, can't do that, copyright. Maybe I'll do it on Twitter or something. You guys ever seen like the whole B movie on Twitter? And you can play it in like 8 times speed or whatever. It's like 10 seconds long if you play it in like 600 times speed. It's pretty funny. Yeah, so I had Kyle Machado, and I think he won. I don't give a fuck. Next up, Erin Blanchfield versus Rose Namajunas. I had Rose. I didn't anticipate that Rose would just lay on her back when she got taken down. Blanchfield was a favorite, mildly, and she lost the first 2 rounds, and I was feeling good. I was like, oh my god, you're kidding me. Of course, like, no problem. Rose is going to win one of these next 2 rounds and then just ride it out and take the UD. It'll be fine. No, she didn't win a single round. She got swept for the rest of the fight. She lost an entire fight, an entire non-co-main event, what this fight should have been, probably 3 rounds, consecutively after winning the first 2. It was honestly kind of sad. I think Blanchfield sort of worked her way into her game over time throughout the fight and sort of lulled Rose into thinking she could do whatever she wanted. And, I don't think it was on purpose, but that's kind of how it worked. Brandon Moreno versus Amir Albazi, the main event. We got to talk about it. I had Moreno versus via UD against Amir Albazi, and boy was I ever correct. 132 strikes, 132 significant strikes. Only one takedown in the fight. Moreno, he just looked so good, honestly. Here's my take, though. I'm concerned that the assassin baby, Brandon Moreno, isn't as good as we think he is anymore. I know he's young. I know he's 30. I know he just looked dominant, but his weakness was never really... Like, he hasn't looked awful against many people on the feet. Like, the problem with Pantoja was that he got suffocated. I will say he did lose to Royval on the feet. But I still think Royval probably beats Moreno. I just think that Albazi wasn't equipped enough to do anything about what Brandon Moreno was doing to him. So, I listen. I love Brandon Moreno as much as the next guy. I do. I think he's great. I think he's a top tier feather. No, he's not featherweight. Top tier flyweight, and I think that he has a chance to get back to the belt. Right? I think he has a chance to go get a fight with Pantoja, or, Kaya Sakura, or whoever fights for the belt next, right? Whoever has the belt in probably 2 fights time. I think if Moreno comes out and he looks this good against somebody else again, I think Royval probably gets the next title shot because he had a pretty impressive performance against Tatsuro Taira. And then I think after that, like, we could see a rematch between we could see Moreno and Royval, we could see Moreno and Pantoja, or we could see a brand new fight in Kaya Sakura versus Moreno. That would be an interesting fight, depending. I don't know much about Kaya Sakura, admittedly, but I think that would be interesting. I think this division has a bright future, but I do think we need to pump the brakes a little bit. We have to see him against somebody else kind of on his level, right? I don't think Amir Albazi is on his level. I think that he got robbed. I think it was clearly a 50-45, maybe 50-44. I think that, like, to say that a guy got robbed, it shows how dominant a performance was, right? He had one judge not give him 1 round, but I'm saying he got robbed. So obviously it was an incredibly dominant performance, and you can't really ask for anything more from him, but you have to wonder, is it really as much of a dominant performance as we think against a guy who's kind of unproven in the last few years, who has had a ton of health problems, who has had a ton of issues, like getting back in the octagon, right? I think he had a canceled fight with Moreno, and we haven't seen him against anybody else in years. So, like, what does that really mean? So I want to hear your thoughts on that, because I'm kind of spinning in my own head about it. And I think that if Moreno comes out and he has another dominant performance, we have to give him the nod. You have to. He's a proven champion. He's not the type of guy that's going to move up to 135. He just can't. I think he's just too small. But what you can do is you can give him a challenge at 125, right? Because there's still guys that are challenges. Like Moreno's probably not getting the next title shot. That's probably Royval. So like Royval will be tied up because the flyweight fight is happening kind of soon for the title with Kaya Sakura. So it's happening kind of soon, and so that puts kind of Royval on the timeline to be next for whoever it is, provided they don't take a ton of damage and he doesn't need to take another fight between now and then, because really there's nobody else near him. Particularly if it's not Pantoja who wins. Pantoja might get a rematch, but if Kaya Sakura knocks him out in 40 seconds, he's not going to be ready to go, and Royval will. So that's my thought on that. And then I think, if Brandon Moreno gets another guy, like maybe if Asakura loses and you put him up against Moreno and Moreno dominates him too, then you can't not give the title shot to Moreno. I think he's one really, really good win, really solid win away from another title shot. And it could go however, right? It could go any way you can really dream of it, because he's Brandon Moreno. He's one of the greatest flyweights of all time. I think he just passed Mighty Mouse for most significant strikes in flyweight history. So like you can't discount that, right? There's no qualifying that. He's just one of the greats. Like Figueiredo is one of the greats, and he beat him, right? Twice. And so you can't discount that. So without further ado, everybody, let me know in the comments what you think about this. Let me know what you think of Brandon Moreno, how you saw his performance. Did you think it was maybe a 50-44 like I did? And then, let me know what you think is next for him, who you'd like to see him fight next. Leave that down in the comments. And then, watch another video that's about to come up on the screen in a second. And I appreciate you for watching. Love you. Peace.